Hey everyone, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I have affectionately called the valley experiences. So one thing that if you have been coming to the Healing Center for any reason, for any length of time, you would have heard me say that it's not always easy, but it's always worth it. And I have found that you can have anything you desire if you're willing to walk through the challenges between you and what you desire. And this is an interesting learning that I've been learning. And you know, sometimes, and I'm not going to use the word sacrifice, although it's been used many times before, and I know for me, the connotation of sacrifice, there's just like no redeeming value in it, period, you know. And I could use the words paying the price and say you can have anything you desire if you're willing to pay the price. And a lot of times, for me anyhow, that whole paying the price cliche has all sorts of dark and ugly connotations to it as well. And so how about we just go with challenges? You know, I'm sure many of you have seen the video, the movie The Secret, and it's got just all sorts of really good information in it. And what I have found when talking to people about it, and I'm going to kind of just give you my own take on it, is that The Secret talks about 3 facets of manifesting your reality. And the first one is a vision, right? Having a vision, having a dream. They talk about a vision board. They talk about being very clear about what that desire is. And that's incredibly important. That we have a vision, that we have a dream, because if we don't have that, what are we walking into? I have found that many times, especially in those valley experiences, that sometimes it feels like the only thing you've got left is a vision. And that vision that's ingrained so deeply into your heart and soul that it's like you cannot let it go. And there's something in that that compels you to go forward, even when it feels like you would much rather just kind of take a time out. The second part of what The Secret talks about is healing with emotion. And again, if you've been coming to the Healing Center for any length of time, I'm sure we've had discussions about emotions, what they are, what they are not. Tools that we can use to manage our emotions and work with them. And so they talk about empowering that vision, fueling that vision with emotion, using emotion as sort of an indicator of the direction that we are going. Okay, second part. And the third part they talk about is work. Is getting out, getting in the trenches, starting to walk. Now, they don't talk, for me, I find they didn't talk a lot directly about work. You can see it if you look for it. One of the examples that I use often is the section where Jack Canfield is talking, and he talks about how before he had the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book, and that was kind of his quote-unquote overnight success. And he talked about how one morning he was in the shower and he had this $1 million idea, and that if he could sell so many copies of his book at however much profit he made, I think the first step was $100,000. That's what it was. And so he thought about this. Okay, then that would work. Okay, so we hear that. And then he goes on to say that then he was in the grocery store, the corner store, and his eye happened to catch a copy of the National Enquirer. It was sitting on the stand there, and he thought, okay, well, if I could get my book covered in the National Enquirer, that would probably give it enough publicity that it would sell enough copies of the book that I could realize my dream, my goal of the $100,000. And then he goes on to say that he was speaking at, I believe it was a college or a university, to an auditorium of people, and then afterwards when he came out, this lady met up with him and asked if she could interview him, and then when he asked where she was from, she said, well, most of her stuff goes to the National Enquirer. So she did the article, went to the National Enquirer. He realized his dream of $100,000. So we look at that and we think, wow, that's so cool. And so we dream and we vision and we, and we feel it with emotion and all that stuff. But sometimes we kind of slip over that work piece of it. And when I talk to people who have watched The Secret, they'll talk about the visions, they'll talk about the emotion, but we don't seem to get around to the work piece of it, and then they wonder why it doesn't really work for them. Now think about this. Jack Canfield was standing in the shower, had this $1 million idea, $100,000 idea about selling his book. Now think about this. He wrote a book. He'd already done that work. He wasn't sitting in the shower thinking, if I had wrote a book, and then if I could sell this many copies, then I could realize this $100,000 dream or goal, right? He wrote the book. There was work involved in writing that book. And then the second piece of it, he was speaking at I believe it was a university, to this auditorium of people. He was out speaking. Now, he had to have done something to get that speaking engagement. He was out working. He was out moving. And then he ran into the reporter from the National Enquirer. If he hadn't been out there beating the bushes, walking step by step by step, he never would have met the lady from the National Enquirer. And he could have showered and thought, man, if I wrote a book and if I sold it, I could do this. Then when he was at the grocery store, he could have looked at the National Enquirer magazine and he said, man, if I had wrote a book and if it was covered in the National Enquirer, then my dream would be realized. He was out doing it. And so this is one of the things that, and I have no idea how we got on this from talking about the Valley experience, but I think that this is the one portion of the equation that many times people kind of skip over. Believe me, I would love to. I'm not saying it's easy, but when we dream the dream and we feel it with emotion, many times those are pretty safe, right? But when we actually get out and our feet hit the pavement, that's when the real risk starts to come into play. Because as long as the dream stays in our dreams, it is still alive. But what happens if we step out into the physical, and then we run into that resistance that is such a beautiful indicator that we're moving forward. See, it's not easy. Work is not easy. Walking into your dreams and into your visions is not easy. And the bigger your vision and the bigger your dream, the more walking and the rougher the roads will be at times, and the steeper the trails will be at times, and they could be covered with brush, and they could have rose bushes that you're going to get prickles and stuff on your legs, and you may trip and fall and you may bruise yourself. And sometimes you're walking and you're walking and you're walking and you're thinking, geez, I'm looking around and all I see is bush. Or the rocky road, right? Where is my dream? Where is my vision? That's the Valley experience. And you know what? Many times, especially if you make a claim, if you say, I'm ready for this, or I am going for this, or I'm taking, I'm just letting her all hang out and here I go. As soon as you make that claim, as soon as you state that, as soon as you put out that resonance, everything starts to shift. And immediately you start to manifest that in a very powerful way. What happens is when that manifestation starts to happen in that powerful way, we look at it and go, what the heck just happened? Here I was up there and I was motivated and I had my vision and I had my dream and I'm gonna move out there, and as soon as I do this, the world falls in. And it seems to be an exact opposition to what I just stated. And we think, geez, who was I? We may think, who was I to think that I could be that person or fulfill that dream or walk into that vision? If we look at the physical, I've done it. We've all done it. But here's a challenge. And here's what's really happening. The challenge is to not look at the physical. The challenge is to look through the physical. To look through the physical and see your vision. See the fulfillment of your vision right on the other side. Because here's what's happening. As soon as you say that, as soon as you make that statement, as soon as you step out, the universe responds with absolute perfection and challenges you and says to you in a very real way, how bad do you want it? See, because warriors, conquerors, and that's what you are, walking into your vision, especially if it's a big one. That's what you are. How can you have victory if there is nothing to have victory over? And so the universe will say to you, fantastic. No, I'm going to put up a resistance that's in direct opposition to the direction you want to go so that you can find out who you really are. And in that moment, in those times when it feels like there's fires burning all around you, know this. The reason the fire is there is so that it can burn away all those things that you don't need anymore, and that it can burn away all those resistances within you, between you and realizing your vision and your dream. That's what the Valley experience is about. Is it easy? No way. Sometimes it will challenge you to the very core of who you are. And if you dream big dreams and you have big visions, and I hope that you do, you'll be challenged in big ways. But know this, that that's what it is, a challenge. And that you would not be led into that challenge if you did not have all the tools that you need to walk through it. Know this, when you're in those valley experiences, that you would not be led there if you didn't have all you needed to walk through them. And know this, that you are never alone. And that at a moment's notice, the universe can just pull that away. And so there's always an out. You're always given opportunities. You're always given choices. So when you're in the middle of it, it's like the universe is saying, what would you like to do? Because you can stop right now if you wish. Right? Anytime you want. You can stop, and that would be fine. Many people do, and they live out their lives. Or you can keep going forward. It's always a choice. You're never in a prison, even though sometimes the bars may seem pretty real. There's always a choice. And when that happens, when that choice comes, I encourage you, keep walking. Keep walking. Because that's where your dreams and those visions are manifest, is in those valley experiences. It's not when you come through and here's the mountaintop and the sun is shining and it seems like in an instant you're living in victory. That's the last step. That victory was accomplished and created conceived, gestated, and given birth all through that valley experience. This walk isn't a walk for those that are not interested in working. You don't have to be perfect, trust me. I'm the poster child for not being perfect. You don't have to even get it right the first time, because there's always a second chance. But I encourage you, don't stop. Keep going. Because in an instant, everything can change, and it will. And that's the wonderful thing about this, is you're walking, and you're walking, and you're walking, and you think, geez, when's this going to be over? And then in an instant, everything can change. And the miraculous transpires and manifests right in front of you. And then you have the most amazing feeling of freedom and power and strength and transformation, knowing that you walked through the difficult times, and now here you are, the victor, the champion, and rejoice in the spoils of victory, because you deserve it. You worked, you walked, you believed. You maybe tripped and fell, but you got up again. And you deserved it. And you deserve it now. And know this. When you're on those mountaintops, and there's many of them, you enjoy it for all it's worth. Lavish in the luxury of it. Because you deserved it. Thanks for spending some time with me. Pick your dreams. Pick your visions. Fuel them with emotion. Start walking when the challenges come. Know that they are one of the best indicators that you're moving forward. Know you have all the tools you need to walk through them. Know that you are never alone. Look for the teachers, because they will be there. Even in the times where it may seem darkest, they'll be there. There's some indicators to help you along the way, to show you this direction, to show you that direction. They'll be there, because you're never alone. And know this, that you are assured of the victory. There's never a question of whether you will be victorious or not. The only question is, will you keep walking?